Don't look now, but October saw a record number of layoffs. In fact, folks, we saw 153,074. That is the largest October layoffs since 2003. Again, that was 22 years ago. Yes, October was a bad month for layoffs. Month on month, layoffs were up 183%. Year on year, layoffs were up 175%. Again, folks, we need to talk about the job market. We obviously know the Fed is watching the job market. In fact, Fed President Cook says, I am worried about the labor market because it can deteriorate very quickly. There is reason to be concerned about the unemployment picture worsening quickly. Again, these are the concerns that some of the Fed members are looking at, but in the divided Fed, we do seem to have folks worried about inflation and others worried about labor. Let's talk, since we're talking Fed, let's talk Fed President Moran, again, the latest member and short timer. He says, shelter disinflation is a reason to expect overall inflation to ease. Again, this is frankly mathematical. It is no great call to say that shelter inflation is deflating. I would argue shelter inflation is flat out wrong. I believe the last shelter reading was 3.6, and all of the inflation readings I'm seeing on shelter are somewhere between negative 0.5 and positive 1%. So certainly not 3.6%. Back to Fed President Moran. My outlook hinges on shelter disinflation. Again, you have to remember Fed President Moran is the one looking for 50 basis point cuts. He wants the Fed to get to neutral quickly, and he is basically telling us shelter is the reason. Still reasonable to continue rate cuts. I want to get to the destination quickly or faster than others. And finally, the better ADP print. Again, why did rates go up yesterday? ADP private payrolls was surprisingly strong. Again, 2 months ago it was negative. This month was, I think, positive 42,000. Expectations were for 22 if memory serves. So again, 8 private payrolls were stronger yesterday. But again, job cuts in October were clearly an issue, up almost 200% month on month and year on year. Again, folks, we need to be watching this. Ken McElroy out with an excellent IG post or reel or whatever you call those things. He says that the wealth formula is easy. If you follow it long enough, keyword there or keywords, long enough, it works every time. You've heard me talk about the wealth formula a lot. Create disposable or discretionary income, become an elite investor at something, and do it for a decade. Folks, it is not pretty. It is not sexy. It is not quick, but it is certain. Again, something to watch for. Back to rents. We did get a report yesterday that rents across the U.S. are down for the 29th month in a row. Again, remember Fed President Moran saying that disinflation in shelter is key. Well, 29 months in a row, that's a trend. You could bank on that trend. I do think more and more of you need to join school. We are getting really close to 500 members. I think we're at 482 this morning, so we need 18 more of you wonderful people to join. I thought I'd give you a taste of just some of the posts that I saw this morning. One, how do I make my disrespectful offers attractive? That's a great question. We did have a new investor intro, which I always appreciate and love the audience giving them some love. We had a question, what is your timeline? Like, where are you in this process? Talking about foreclosure auctions, out-of-state investing. We did create a content creator directory. We have a lot of YouTube channels and content creators in there. And then finally, somebody wrote about their first deal story. Again, folks, we have wealth builders in the community who like to share. Everybody's at a different place, going at a different pace. You should join the family, see what is going on there. We did get an update on Q3 delinquencies, and they aren't pretty. Student loans, not shockingly, shot way higher. In fact, they are screaming higher. I think they're at like 14% or something. However, mortgage rates, once again, disappointing the doomers, or mortgage delinquencies, excuse me, not rates, delinquencies. Disappointing the doomers and the crash bros, yes, and the crash sisters. Low delinquencies and mortgages reflect strength in the sector. Again, it's not like last time. These aren't variable rate debt. These are fixed shelter costs. And you're going to see pain, but it'll be in student loans and cars. It won't be anything drastic in housing. Scott Bessent says the golden years are coming. We are going to go gangbuster in Q1 of 2026. Again, that's when the big, beautiful bill, the tax rebates, all of that stuff starts to come through. And according to Scott Bessent, buckle up, folks. It is going to be gangbusters in Q1 of 2026. We shall see. Let's talk about some earnings. We did get Robinhood beat top line and bottom line. Revenue up 100%. Wow. 100% year on year. AMC, man, I can't remember the last movie I saw. When was the last here's a question for the audience. Let me know in the comments. What was the last movie you saw in the movie theater? So we're not talking on the TV. Like you got in your car, you drove there, you sat in a room, right? What was the last movie you saw in a movie theater? I don't think I've been to a movie theater in 4 years. Certainly 2 years. Wow, that's crazy. Anyways, AMC did beat top line, bottom line, but revenue was down 4%. Snap beat top line and bottom line, revenue up 10%, and announced a $500 million stock buyback. And finally, Lyft missed on revenue, but beat on earnings with revenue up 11%. So interesting to watch there. Looks like the U.S. Department of Transportation is going to start cutting flights. Yes, starting tomorrow, flights will start to be cut because of air traffic controllers not being paid. Looks like it's going to start at 10% of flights in May, exceed 40% if this continues on. That is not good. FreightWave CEO says trucking volume down 17% year on year. Some sectors like housing and autos down 30% year on year. Again, trucking is a sign of what's going on in the economy. Credit card debt is now at a record $1.23 trillion. That's up almost 6% year on year. The average, here you go, folks. Who in my audience has a credit card balance higher or lower than this? Average credit card debt is $6,523. That is revolving. That means you're paying 20% interest on that every month. Wow. I'm going to guess most of my audience does not have a significant credit card balance month to month. Some do, certainly, but I'm going to guess most don't, but I don't know. Let's find out in the comments below. Who wants to raise their hand and says they have more or less than $6,523? 60%, 60. So the average American carries a balance. Only 40% pay it off. 60% carry a balance. Wow. And finally, 38% of households say it's difficult to pay debt on time. Jamie Dimon out ringing the bell again, saying we will have a recession, and it will have a credit component. Timing is unclear. Well, thanks, Jamie. Thank you for telling us that. I'm so glad to hear from you. Crazy. Anyways, looks like, again, the election was on Tuesday. New York City has a new mayor. I do want to remind you that the top 1% of New York City citizens pay 48% of the taxes. I'll say that again. The top 1% of income earners in New York City pay 48% of total tax collected. You can't say that you can't say that enough. If you make the top 1% the devil and evil, some of them are going to leave. I will ask you and remind you of San Francisco. When San Francisco came out with that crazy tax 4 or 5 years ago on companies whose CEOs made 100x more than the average employee, they left, right? You don't have to work in San Francisco. You can go to San Jose. You can go to the East Bay. So again, the top 1% of people in New York City pay 48% of total tax collection. What will happen if you target them more. Some are going to leave. Some are going to leave. Looks like the Supreme Court not feeling Trump's tariffs. Again, we've talked about this. I had a conversation with Taylor from Life Goal Investments, and according to Taylor, he thinks the Supreme Court's going to say no bueno. The president does not have the authority to tax. And according to the Supreme Court questions, they are looking at tariffs as tax. Only Congress has the ability to issue taxes. What's going to happen? Will the Supreme Court rule against Trump and make us rebate all of this money? Will they look and try something different? This could get really, really messy. And then finally, I'm starting to hear some rumblings about mortgage rate relief. Although, in my opinion, it is misguided and mistargeted. I've been hearing about mortgage rate relief for homeowners with equity. And second, what are these people talking about? Well, they are looking at lowering interest rates to make it easier for you to tackle home equity. Again, folks, as I've said for a while, we have $34 trillion in home equity. And yes, consumers are going to do what consumers do. They are going to tap that equity and spend, baby, spend. So they are already looking at how to help homeowners do that at slightly lower rates. And of course, they want to help the richy rich get rich. They want to lower some numbers on second homes. Again, folks, this, in my opinion, is completely misguided. We need to focus on entry-level housing. We need to do something like we did in the 1950s and go on a building boom. If you want to see rents fall, prices fall, build more. This should be the lesson from the Sun Belt. This should be the lesson from Texas. If you want to see rents fall, let the developers go nuts. Let them overbuild. And then, guess what? Prices go down. You don't spur demand and see prices fall. So, folks, at the end of the day, do me a favor and join school. I would love to get us over 500 members. It would be a huge milestone. You can see the link right there, school.com/ORaaT. Also, don't forget our Vegas event, less than 100 tickets. We are starting to sell more and more tickets once I started talking about it again. Less than 100 tickets. It's less than 100 days away. Go get your tickets, buy your airlines, get your hotels, get a deal in Vegas. Vegas is on sale, so go get it. And, of course, if you are a landlord, don't forget to check out Steadily. It is landlord insurance only. That is all they do. They are not focused on anything else except landlords. Give them a shot. See if they can help you. See the link in the description. Take care. We will be back Sunday morning for the daily financial news. Later.